Today, I'm going to talk about this book that I wrote. It's called Tracking Truth. And this is my first YouTube live, so I am hoping that everything is working. Um, but let's just roll with it. If there's something not working, please comment in the chat box, and I'll try to work on it. So I wrote this book, and the subtitle is An Alchemical Journey of Learning from Nature. So alchemy is a reference to transformation. And um, I had to go through a long process of transformation just to get to the point where this book has come to completion. I first thought about or felt the urge to want to write about nature and my love for it when I was much younger, in my 20s, so over 2 decades ago. But I had to go through a long process to actually have something to write besides I love nature and I think it's beautiful. And that's what this book is about. I had to actually live the journey through learning from nature. And alchemy is also a reference to how nature itself changes. So, how does nature transform? What do you think? At the most superficial level, I think we can all agree that it transforms through the elements. We can see each day the sun set and rise. We can see rain come. We can see how the earth moves and transforms each day. And of course, we can see it change over the course of the seasons. So nature itself transforms through the elements. And that's how I ended up structuring this book through the four classical elements plus the fifth element, ether. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do some readings. I have 5 really short readings to go through. They're just about a page each to give you a sampling of how that elemental progression has shaped me, how I've learned from not just nature itself, but through its elements. And then I'm going to do some Q&A. So at any time, you can ask your questions in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer them when the time comes around. And yeah, so let's get started. So first, real quick, I'm going to read the back cover, just in case you haven't actually seen the physical book. So it says, I couldn't shake the feeling that something real was out there. So I went after it, leaving what was expected, the sport, the status, and the life I had built, and answering a call to immerse myself in the wilder places of the world. What I discovered set me on a collision course with truth, out there, within me, and woven into the fabric of life itself. And in meeting it, I learned to find my way. And then the introduction's very short. Nature's call. Nature was always calling to me. At first, it wasn't a voice, but a feeling, a magnetic pull I couldn't shake, beckoning me to follow. That feeling pulsed through me in my youth. I couldn't understand it. I only knew that ignoring it felt like a betrayal of something vital, something ancient and true. So if you've ever felt that quiet pull toward the natural world, if you've ever sensed there is more waiting to be discovered, this book is for you. Let's begin at the trailhead, where it all started, with fire. So our first excerpt is from the fire chapter, and the first section is called Ignition. I'm just going to read the very first page here, and then we'll talk about fire. Ignition. My hands are engulfed in blue flames, and I'm in a full-blown panic. To a bird perched in a nearby tree, the scene must look absurd. A fully grown, 200-pound man with a scruffy beard, screaming and flailing like an infant. Amid the chaos, an image flickers in my mind. Prometheus, stealing fire, not to burn, but to awaken. The morning air is sharp and pine sweet, clinging to my skin as I stumble backward. The mountains watch silently, stone-faced and unflinching. I don't yet know what's happening or why. All I feel is searing pain, electric and consuming, jolting my mind into a frenzy. The flames are blue because it's an alcohol fire. Its origin, my own stupidity. I had poured fuel into an already burning camp stove. The flame raced up the stream and kissed my hand, which already had some alcohol on it from my own careless handling. The fire dies within seconds, but the pain lingers, writhing and sharp. Minutes pass before I can breathe comfortably again. I let out a few heavy sighs, trying to release the tension coiled inside my body. So much for my Rocky Mountain high. I feel the land pulsing with judgment, cold, indifferent, even disapproving. I sit on a rock, gutted by frustration. What am I doing out here in the Colorado wilderness? What a young, dumb, dreamy romantic I am, thinking I could hack it alone with so little experience. I think back to my childhood room and how I'd fantasize about living in the wild, so sure of myself. Now I just feel humiliated in my ignorance. Terrible thoughts begin to surface. I'll probably get lost and starve to death, or worse, end up as bear food. Either way, I can already see the headline back home. Star athlete dies tragically in hiking accident. This will be my legacy. Another starry-eyed young man swallowed by the wild. So that's just a little excerpt from the fire chapter. And just to give some context, I had been in college. I grew up a wrestler. I was wrestling in college. I was at a school with had a lot of pressure. I was going through a lot of transitions, as a lot of us do when we go to college. And I decided to take a leave of absence. And it was both because of the pressure was consuming me, and it was also because I had this call to nature that I wanted to explore. And now fire can be that element was teaching me that, or moving through me in the sense that I had the courage and the willpower to go ahead and just do it. But at the same time, fire can be overly linear, can just go right after what it wants and then ultimately get humbled. And so I had a choice here, either to press on and continue stubbornly moving forward, or to be redirected and maybe consider that I had something else or somewhere else I needed to be. And so that's the theme of this chapter, or that's a part of it anyway. Now we're going to skip to the water chapter, and then we'll talk a little bit about water. Okay. This is the essence. This is what I came to Montana for. There's something about nature's presence and wholeness that brings out my own. I feel a current of pure, clean power pulsing through me. And as I melt into a dynamic elemental dance so much older and greater than myself, I'm infused with a level of awareness far beyond thought. It's the raw, pure truth of creation, naked and ecstatic in its essence. For a few moments, I almost fully dissolve into it. I'm a body crouched on stone, and I'm also everything: creek, cloud, fish, wind. Then it fades. I come back to myself. My boundaries return. Thoughts resume. For a moment, once again, I was something greater than myself. And now, a trace of that something still hums inside me. So, just a short excerpt there. And in the water chapter, I'm wrestling with strong emotions right from the beginning. I'm contemplating a relationship, a divorce. My son's well-being's hanging in the balance, and I go into nature to try to sort it out. And I'm having these memories and flashbacks. And so water can weigh us down. It can cloud our judgment, or as it demonstrated in this moment, when we go to nature, a lot of times it can actually help us find clarity. We can dissolve beyond ourselves into the greater dance of life and feel moments of clarity, feel transmissions, feel just purity within. And from that vantage point, we can start to make better decisions. So that's a little snippet from that chapter. Next is the Earth chapter. And I'm starting at the very beginning. Descent. Cameras are rolling as concrete spews out from wooden forms I've erected for my stone cabin. Suspended over 4 feet above the ground, the concrete oozes out from stress fractures in the junctions between the forms, falling and smacking the dirt with a sickening thud. I'm trying to appear calm, but the situation is rapidly unraveling, and millions of people are about to witness it on the Discovery Channel. The world is about to discover my incompetence, and all I can do is scratch my head and watch it happen. The truck has stopped pouring, but the forms, now packed with tens of thousands of pounds of wet concrete and loose rock, are not only leaking, but visibly bulging. I'm ready to blow. The workers are glaring at me. One of them shakes his head in disgust. Under the crushing pressure, I break into a cold sweat. My calm exterior is cracking. What the hell have I gotten myself into? I'm over $100,000 in debt, and now I realize I'm about to be buried alive. Not just by this project, by life itself. This is going to end like my wrestling career. Close, but not enough. Another second place finish. A courageous yet crushing loss. Maybe losing is my fate. Seconds stretch like hours. The wet concrete continues pouring out of the form steadily, forming large piles in several places. My breath turns shallow. I'm on the verge of full-blown panic. The walls are literally closing in on me. What am I going to do? So this was a fun moment. And for context, I'm in Vermont building a cabin, and I'm trying to reconnect to the earth. I had this calling, and I just wanted to immerse myself in the elements and get back to older rhythms, because I knew somewhere Earth teaches and taught me, and I would say there's lots of lessons in this chapter. The Earth, of course, is fertile ground for lots of lessons, but that the Earth itself is a spiritual dojo in a way. We tend to think of spirituality as something above in the heavens, and we tend to forget that like time and truth and wisdom are woven into the fabric of the earth itself. So by getting my feet on the earth, going back to Vermont, I learned lots of things, and it also includes a journey to Colombia and other misadventures, as true to the rest of the whole story. All right, air chapter. Another short excerpt. Arrival. This time, I'm determined to make it work in the Rockies. After being kicked out so many times, I'm uneasy. I don't want to be forced back east for any reason. I can't endure the heartbreak of seeing my dream crushed again. But as we drive up the steep grade of the Colorado Plateau, it no longer feels like a pursuit. It feels like an awakening. I understand now that for the mountains to truly receive me, the rest of my life must be in alignment. For the first time, I'm not arriving empty-handed or full of hot air. A stable job is anchoring me out west. A woman who shares my vision of living beyond the clockwork of society and attuning to the older rhythms of the earth walks beside me. And I carry with me a deeper clarity regarding the burning questions that have always drawn me to these mountains. But I've come to realize something else. It's not just the answers that move me forward. It's the willingness to keep asking deeper, more disruptive questions. The kind that stretch me beyond stability, reveal truths larger than I imagined, and inspire me into meaningful motion. The ones that offer no promise of comfort, only honesty. And somewhere along the way, I've stopped waiting for permission to ask them. I've learned to trust that if a question continues to rise again and again, it's because it's meant to be asked. And most importantly, I have the ability to receive and understand the answers as they come to me. And now I'm heading to a place where I feel ready to ask the most profound questions, the kind that could split the sky open and teach me how to fly. So that's the beginning of the air chapter. And it's where I am just landing in this land of enchantment here in New Mexico. And air as a force within us is about questions. It's about contemplation. It's about truth seeking. And ultimately, it's about not only using logic and reasoning, but also to receive insight and inspiration from something larger than ourselves, from nature and beyond. And so this is where some of my deepest questions started to be finally resolved, to some degree. Of course, questions lead towards more questions, but that was a pivotal moment. Finally, a quick reading from the Ether chapter. A few months pass by. I'm on another quest, this time guided by the wisdom of the cave at the Yebits, which is the name for a rock formation behind my house. After consulting its power, it steers me upward toward a steep boulder field I've never explored before. As I scan the expanse before me, my eyes are drawn to the towering trees scattered throughout, larger and older than any I've encountered before. The contrast between the massive dark gray boulders and the towering trees creates an exotic, almost mystical atmosphere. It's as if I've stumbled upon a forgotten, hidden city in the heart of a lost jungle, waiting to reveal its secrets. As I leave the Yebits, I follow what appears to be a trail, but I soon realize it isn't. This is something I've encountered before. No human-made path, just the natural architecture of the land guiding me along a secret route. It leads me into a tight canyon. The canyon is guarded by smaller junipers with thin trunks stretching and intertwining in all directions, creating a maze that's difficult to navigate. I crawl under and over, sometimes squeezing through tiny openings, twisting and turning until I finally emerge beyond the junipers and find myself at the end of the canyon and the beginning of a sloped boulder field. To my left is a colossal juniper tree with a massive trunk as thick as a dinosaur, branches glowing in the sunlight like it's on fire. I stand in awe for a moment, but I'm too focused to linger. I push forward, climbing and weaving my way between the giant boulders until I reach the top of the field. My body aches as I climb, but I'm unwilling to stop until I've made it to the summit. When I finally reach the top, I collapse beneath a beautiful bushy juniper tree. Its presence feels grounding and nurturing. Exhausted, I close my eyes and sink into its needly bed. In my daze, I hear a soft voice flowing through me. Don't do anything reckless. You aren't ready. As the fatigue drains from my body, I begin to feel restored. I open my eyes, stand up, and realize I'm on top of a mesa. I walk around, taking in the dynamic landscape unfolding before me, my mind still lingering on the voice I heard. Not ready for what? I let the thought go and continue onward, captivated by the new terrain. Huge junipers stand tall and sun-bleached dry riverbeds carved through the sloping land in winding arcs. I follow a path that parallels the main wash, which leads me to what seems like stone steps rising up a small ridge. When I reach the top, I pause in awe. Ahead, three massive rock formations rise abruptly from the desert floor. They stand only a few yards apart, each jutting at least 30 feet high. The stark white sand background in the distance gives them a saintly, almost noble appearance. The Three Kings. The formations tell me their names before I even ask. As I approach, the caution of the bushy juniper tree echoes in my mind. I circle the first formation, studying its vertical face. There's no clear route up. I move to the back of the middle rock, where I spot a series of crevices offering a way. But halfway up, I realize there's nothing left to grab. I carefully descend and turn to the final formation. This one is less vertical, and I quickly identify a viable route. Within minutes, I reach the top. The view is breathtaking, and I feel emboldened, as if I've absorbed the strength of the rocks themselves. For a brief moment, I feel unstoppable, kingly, immortal. To my left, I see the tops of the two other formations. It looks like I could jump from where I stand to the middle one. Just as I'm about to leap, the words of the junipers echo once again. You aren't ready. I glance downward at the drop below and suddenly realize that one mistake and I would certainly fall to my death. My ego protests, egging me on. You can do it. You've trained for this all your life. I sit down, forcing myself to pause. For a moment, I allow the inner voices to quiet, letting the gravity of the situation settle in. My old, impulsive, fiery self would have surely taken the chance, especially if I could capture it on film, using it as an advertisement for the movement training I once taught. But something inside me shifts. I see the temptation for what it is, an unnecessary risk from a low value of my own life, a pursuit of money, fame, and a thrill that overshadows the preciousness of life. But life itself is what I'm devoted to now, not self-glorification. And I must walk the walk, embodying the sun-like perspective I've earned. I must become a living example of that devotion. I decide not to jump. My ego flares, making me feel as though I'm giving in to fear. But deep within, I know this is a choice of wisdom. I understand that my bruised ego may haunt me for a while, so I make a peace offering. If the jump continues to haunt me, I'll return one day, perhaps with more power or skill to make it safer. This inner agreement softens me. I descend, feeling triumphant in a way. As I make my way down, I glance back at the Three Kings. I feel them nodding in approval, as if to say, good choice. I laugh softly to myself and nod in return. So ether, as demonstrated, is where the communications from nature become more direct. I'm able to, in this case, even feel a tree or experience a tree speaking through me, and starting to learn how to embody that wisdom and live it. And so that's a part or a snippet of the ether chapter. That one goes through a wide range of those type of experiences. So overall, my hope is that in reading a book like this, that if you feel a call to nature, if you follow those soft whispers, whatever it is, whether it's a sunset, whether it's a flower, anything that inspires you, that can be a portal to a deeper relationship with nature. And the elemental structure is intended to help you reflect on your own life and how maybe the elements have been moving through you as a transformative force all along. And what I found is the more you tune into that, the more the transformation happens, bringing you closer and closer to your true self. So, with that, any questions you want to ask, please put them in the comments below. I'll say real quick, if you'd like to buy the book, if you're prepared for that and you're ready to go, the link is on my website. It's also it's going to steer you to Amazon. You can just go to Amazon and just type in "Tracking Truth" Daniel Clark, and you'll find it. And I'm doing more and more events. If you're in the northern New Mexico area, I'll have it available for readings and hopefully in bookstores in this area. And just because, just to give you all a chance, if you wanted to ask any other questions, I'm just going to start with a question that I was asked at my last reading that I really appreciated. Two questions. One was, if this journey that I've gone through has inspired hope in my outlook, or just inspired hope in general. And my answer to that is, I've always felt hope. As a child, I think a lot of us do. If we are born into fair circumstances, if we're exposed to nature, we feel the goodness of life just flowing through us and around us. We see beauty, whether it's in nature itself, and animals and people and ourselves. And by following that thread of nature from a very young age, I've always felt that hope. I never let it go. And the further I followed it down the trail, the more it's actually expanded, because I've just found, of course, I've encountered obstacles. I see things that are, I see the negative side of life, of course. That's a part of actually inspiring more and more hope, is to doubt, is to see and acknowledge the negative things, the areas that the world and especially humans can improve. But the more I go down the trail, the more I'm just inspired by hope. Nature fills me with hope and reassurance that this all has a purpose, including human beings. Another question I was asked is if I'm going to be writing more than one book. And the answer to that is yes. In fact, just like I knew I was going to write this book at age 20, now at age 42, I know I've got two more in me, and maybe even more offshoots. But as far as this direct series, you're going to find that the trail doesn't end. There's always more questions, and there's always more to do here. And so I have two more, and it's actually following the alchemical structure that I've learned since I've taken alchemy, not just as a metaphor, but as an actual practice. Some of you may know I make tinctures and I make nature formulations that correspond to the elements, and the newer ones that I'm going to be creating correspond to deeper layers beyond the elements, the principles and the poles, the minerals and the metals. So the book will follow that structure, the series. So the next one will be, what I'm doing now, I'm wrestling with the principles, and I don't even know exactly how it's going to turn out. I just know I'm living it now. I'm making the formulations that correspond to the three principles, starting with the obsidian quintessence, which is the body or salt principle, and just going from there. So, but you can expect at least two more out of me, God willing, anyway. And I see we have a question here. Which section was the most difficult to write, and which one came to you most effortlessly in a total flow state? The one that was the most difficult to write for me was definitely the water chapter. I am a fire dominant individual. If you go based off of the astrology, it shows me having fire dominant placements. So, and it matches my constitution. I'm a very energized, driven, passionate person. So to tap into water, which is about feeling and emotion and like letting yourself go and dissolving into oneness, that experience, first of all, like navigating really difficult, sticky relationship situations, was like way out of my comfort zone. Not what I really wanted to do necessarily in life. And it was also difficult to write about because I had to process it on a higher level of reflection and integration and understanding. And it was difficult, but it also kind of was the most rewarding chapter for me to write, in that I felt like, okay, I finally understand this element that's in a way my opposite, and at a baseline level anyway. So, and in terms of which one flowed the most effortlessly, that would be a toss up between the fire chapter and the air chapter. I would say the fire chapter, because when I decided on the elemental structure of this book, I knew I was probably going to start with fire, and then I just remembered, as I even read about in this section, um, wow, well, where should I start? Well, I lit myself on fire, so that might be a good starting point. And that section just flowed out, and it was fun because it was remembering my deeper memories, my more useful self, my more innocent and confused self, just wandering around trying to figure myself out, was fun to reflect on and integrate. And then the air chapter also was really, I would say, the driving force of the book, though, because as I mentioned in the book, the book Siddhartha was a really big influence on me, and that book was driven by questions. What is the nature of reality? What is truth? What are it's asking these deep, even esoteric questions like what is Atman? What is Om? All these deep, deep, deep questions, and the whole journey is driven by the seeking of those answers. And so, in a lot of ways, by the time I wrote this book, that's what did drive my journey. As I mentioned in the air chapter, was just continually asking deeper and deeper questions and trying to find how they interweave, and how the wisdom of nature can answer those questions and show me, like, so I can actually see it, not just think it through. And so writing the air chapter, when I finally got to that section, was like, all right, here we go. I can finally get to the part where I was like coherently asking questions and they made sense, and I was getting answers. And it wasn't just like my young, dreamy, poetic self musing on life. It was like I had ground to stand on, and I was gaining momentum towards what I was seeking. So, well, if you're watching this live, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to post this, so I hope that anyone who's interested in the book can use this as a reference to get a nice taste of what the book has to offer. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll do something like this at the very least next time. I'll be doing the next book I do. And as far as this YouTube channel, I do plan to continue more of my wisdom quests. I haven't filmed a new one in a while. I've been focusing more on product launches as I've actually made formulations. But I have a wisdom quest in mind planned. So if you're into those and you watched my other videos, stay tuned, more coming. And if you haven't watched those videos, check them out. I think it'll give a deeper taste of what I'm about, and just open up maybe possibilities for how we all experience nature. All right, over and out.